So obviously, a lot of people want to live in the U.S. A lot of people want to immigrate to the U.S. But then we also have a guest who actually left the U.S. He's an American citizen, natural-born American citizen. He left the U.S. So why? Why, Leon? Why would you want? The question, I guess, the first question is going to be, why would you want to leave the U.S. when everybody, for example, they want to come in? You actually left. So maybe you can talk about the reason why you left the U.S. But first, just briefly introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Leon. I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised. I've only lived three places outside of LA: San Francisco, Frisco, the Bay. Lived there for like 3 months. Left there, went to Vegas for about 3 years, give and take. Vegas and City, I lived there again 3 years or so, give and take. And then after that, I moved outside of Los Angeles in Brazil, where I'm at now. I've been here about actually 5 years this year, so it's been good. Yeah, those are the only three places I lived outside of Los Angeles. And my really profession is really as an auditor, like ABL, asset-based lending, doing that for X amount of years. Yeah, been to 34 states out of 50, 20 countries, and now I started teaching English when I got to Brazil. Yeah, I create
Okay.
my own. I create my own textbooks, etc. Yeah.
Oh, great. Wow, 5 years already.
hmm
So this was 2019 when you left the US?
Yeah, before the coronavirus, yeah,
Okay.
actually
So
happened. Yeah.
like some people who leave the US or even who leave California, the reason is because, it's gotten so expensive to live in California. Maybe it's expensive to live in the US or whatever. There are a lot of reasons why people might leave the US. So what was the if you were to say one reason, of course there's going to be a bunch, but let's just find out what is the number one at the right at the top. What is the reason that you left the
The
US?
reason is my purpose, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been working for so many years, lived my life in Los Angeles. And as you get older, you start to ask your questions, what have I gave back to society? What have I done? And to be honest with you, nothing. I mean, like I'm an auditor and examiner, and all I do is audit companies, write up things, good and bad, and mostly bad. Try to find the findings and report to the bank, financial institutions. And then you start getting older, and you say, "Damn, I'm like, what have I done? What have I given back?" And I work my butt off, and here I am. And I start searching for my soul searching, your purpose. Both my parents died. I have no siblings, only child. And of course, I met a woman, girlfriend at the time, and she's my wife now. And I decided like, okay, do I bring them to United States because land of opportunity, all of that. But I've been through all that, and it's not a great thing because you work your ass off and you don't have your personal time. So for me, I just needed some kind of purpose. And if I move my family, which goes to United States, they're going to go through all that, culture shocks, miss their family, friends, relatives, and all that. And for me, I'm not close to my relatives. I own, both my parents passed away. I'm the only child. I only have a handful of friends, and I'm like, it makes more sense for me to move to Brazil. I visited Brazil 8 times before I made my decision, and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I like this place. I like Brazil. Visited, uh, 8 times, and I was like, I really like it. So that was one of the main reason that I moved to Brazil. Yeah.
Okay. And so what about, like, a lot of people want to live in the US because of work, job opportunities. So did you feel like you were ready to give up your career in the US, or and did you think about the direction of your career if you were to leave the US? Because, when you leave the US, it's going to be really hard to get back in, right? In terms of
Yes.
career, you know what I mean? Especially now that you've
Mhm.
been gone 5 years. Did that ever cross your mind?
It did. It was a challenge. I mean, I've made it to the pinnacle of my career, and for me, it's like I made a lot of money. And the problem was, it's really if I continue that kind of lifestyle, I knew I wasn't gonna last long because I ate unhealthy food. My sleeping habits was unhealthy. I mean, I kind of give you an idea. I would work like for 24 hours with no sleep. The most I didn't sleep was like 52 hours because of my job, the demand of my job. I mean, don't get me wrong, US, there's a lot of land opportunities, dreams and all that kind of stuff, your fairy tale dream and uh, fairy tale ending, but it's not all that, right? Because you have to work hard for it. If you want something to be successful, you got to work your ass off. And yeah, you can live in US, and if for you it's certain content, and you want the 9 to 5 job, but I wanted more than that. I wanted money. I wanted the lifestyle. I wanted everything that I can take, and at the same time, I wanted my personal freedom, my life, and my happiness. That's the number one rule, is your happiness. And of course, like I said, if I died, what have I given back? And the answer was nothing. So prayed to God, and changed my course, changed my direction, and that landed me to Brazil. Of course, um, it is a challenge, because when you go to move to another country, especially outside of the US, what are you going to do? How are you going to live, etc. I think if you have a strong mind and you're one of those individuals, put that person anywhere and he will succeed. And that was a challenge, and I'm able to do that moving to Brazil. Yeah.
Would you say that in the US, you had to work so hard that it's like you never even, it's like while you had the money, you wouldn't have the time, right? Like you couldn't enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to keep myself sane. I mean, I was working hard, but at the same time, like they say, work hard, party harder, right? So I tend to do many things just to keep me sane. Like for example, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, I would try to host events. I would do like all kinds of things, like dinner events, skydiving, clubs, all that stuff. Mostly, I'm a foodie guy, so I did a lot of dinner, events and social events like wine, drinking events. And my average people that I hosted was around 80 people. The most I had was probably 150 people. My average events were like 80 people. So I didn't know them. They were all professionals, but I would host events just to keep me, grounded and sane. So, but sometimes on Sundays, I would just keep that for myself, and I would end up working too on the weekend. So, yeah. Um, of course, I try to enjoy my life, but most of the time I was married to my job, and that was the bad part of it.
Hmm. It's used to host what, like networking events?
Yeah, networking events,
Oh,
people meeting their girlfriends or future wives. And, I would just go to an event and host like one of those dinners, like professionals, and it'd be all over LA and even Orange County,
oh,
it'd be
okay.
like, people who are immigrants that would attend my events, people who are new to, Los Angeles and wants to see certain restaurants and places that they've never been to. Like for example, what is that? The Magic Castle. I don't know if you're familiar with the Magic Castle. I hosted
Uh-huh.
an event at Magic Castle. I had
Oh.
like 75 people at that event one time. Yeah.
And how would you get the word out? Did you do it on the Meetup app or what?
Yeah, I did it on Meetup app. Yeah. I was like an organizer at one point. Yeah. I was
Oh,
very
okay.
active. Yeah.
Oh, so you're good at bringing people together.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, I mean, networking, friendship, things like that. I did a lot with also Asian community. People
Hmm.
from all of that, but at the same time, they weren't coming from Asia, but they were also from parts of the world, other countries. Yeah.
And so from the time that you decided you wanted to leave the US and you wanted to move to Brazil, how long was it before you actually got on that plane? I mean, the planning period.
The planning period probably five, more than 5 years, I'd say, before
Oh,
I really decided.
5 years?
Yeah. Yeah, before I
Oh.
really decided that I wanted to move in that country. Because in that 5 years, I never really even visited Brazil, right?
Uh-huh.
I just had a girlfriend at the time, dating her. She would come and visit me in LA. It's kind of a long distance type relationship. So then, my best friend at the time wanted to watch, get this, Bon Jovi in Brazil. That was in Porto
Oh.
Alegre, because Bon Jovi already finished the United States, and his next event was in Brazil. And
Hmm.
he convinced me somehow, say, dude, let's go watch it because, I may never see this again. I love that band and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay. So I decided to renew my passport because at that time I didn't have the passport. It expired. So I renewed it and got my passport, went to Brazil, went to Porto Alegre, watched, um, Bon Jovi, met my girlfriend in a city, and then we flew together to Porto Alegre, and then I visited some parts in south of Brazil, and then from there I went to her city, met her family and all that, and then after that I visited like about 7 times, before I really decided to move to Brazil.
Oh, okay. So in that 5 year period, wait, so let me get this straight. When you decided you wanted to leave the US, at that point, you didn't know where you wanted to go yet, or at that point, you already knew it was going to be Brazil?
In 5 years, I was really thinking about moving to Brazil. I haven't confirmed or anything because I've never visited. I met my girlfriend and, I knew about Brazil, but not really visited. I visited 20 countries. Brazil happened was not one of them at the time. So is already included in the 20 countries, but at that time, I only had 19 countries, and I said, I'm thinking about moving to Brazil, finding out more things about the economy and all that. And then when I actually visited, I can see myself living here. And then I visited 8 times to really decide, okay, I can do this. This is not bad. It's not as bad as I thought. Yeah. So yeah, made the decision. And, but before, when I made that decision, my father also passed away too. So when he passed away several months later, I said, I think it's time. You know, there's nothing here for me. Yeah.
Okay. So you were okay, so let me I just wanted to know, I just wanted to
Yeah.
try to figure out, like, did you want to leave the US, but and then you decided it would be Brazil, or it was Brazil that made you want to leave the US?
Actually, I was never even thinking about leaving the
Oh,
US.
okay.
But when I met my girlfriend at the time, she was Brazilian and she was living in Brazil, and
Uh,
that started crossing my mind about, what's Brazil like? Is it nice to live there? It's just a thought, not really
okay.
a massive decision, right? And then
Yeah.
as my, relationship started, growing and getting longer, then I started opening up about maybe possibility that I may move to Brazil versus them moving to US, but I
Oh,
wasn't sure
okay.
yet because I haven't really visited. Yeah.
Okay. And then when your father
Yeah.
passed away, you were just ready to get out of the
Yeah,
US.
I visited Brazil before my father passed away. I think I
Hmm.
visited Brazil like twice before he passed away. So I already
Hmm.
had an idea of what was it like. And as time grew by, and I was like, getting bored, routine, that kind of stuff. And when my
Yeah.
father passed away, I was like, there's nothing here for me really. Maybe if I had siblings or if I was close to, family and things like that, something to hold me there, I
Uh-huh.
probably would have stayed. But at the same time, I think my job and my, lifestyle would have just killed me. Yeah.
Did you have a hard time with the passing of your father? Is that one of the reasons that sort
No,
of
I don't think
no?
so. I
Okay.
think it was difficult when my mother passed away. I was living in Vegas. That's why I moved to Vegas because of their age.
Oh.
When my mother passed away, that's when I moved from Vegas to back to LA, Newport Beach. So
Hmm.
I moved back to Newport Beach and with my dad and yeah, lived there for I'd say about 2 years or a little over 2 years. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then
And
that's when I decided, yeah, to move
what? Okay.
when he passed
Okay.
away. Yeah.
When you realized that you didn't have an immediate family, you didn't feel like you had any deep relationship ties, I guess, in
Yeah. Hmm.
California. Okay. All right. And
Yeah.
then you had somebody in Brazil that you cared for,
Right.
and
Hmm.
so that okay.
Yeah, and when you're in LA, you take things for granted, right? I mean, I lived in Newport Beach. I hardly went to the beach. We
Yes.
had all that nice restaurants and the groceries and things like that. I was like spoiled, right? We're Americans. And then when you leave the country, not just on vacation, but literally leave outside of US, then you say, wow, I can't believe it. I missed all those opportunities I took for granted, like going to the beach more often, watch the
Hmm.
sunset, like go to nice restaurants and pick out those foods and things like that you miss. And but hey, you have your perks, plus and minuses. Yeah.
So when you told your friends, I'm going to be moving to Brazil, I mean, what was their response?
Yeah, they were shocked. They was like, "No, really? Are you serious?" And they thought, "Oh, you probably live there like maybe 1 year, 2 years, and you'll be back and things like that." So
Hmm.
um, they thought I was just kidding.
Hmm.
But at the same time I wasn't, and they started respecting my decision and say, okay, well, good luck with that and hope everything goes well. And I said, we'll see how it goes. If I don't like it, I can come back to US and always go back to my to my career, my professional career. Yeah.
Have have you stayed in touch with your friends? Have they come to visit you?
See, that's the thing. I mean, some of my friends are afraid to come to Brazil because, what they see in the US when they Google is like Brazil is one of the most dangerous places, all that murder, crimes, and etc. And they say,
Hmm.
oh, no way. I mean, where you're at, where I'm at, it's like one of the highest crimes in Northeast, right? So
Hmm.
they're afraid just coming here. And I said, no, it's not that bad, and they're just afraid. I said, don't worry, I'll pick you up from the airport, this and that. But what they see on television, they're afraid. I try to educate them that yes, the violence is high. It's not really the violence of the citizens. It's really the violence among themselves. When I say themselves, I'm talking about like drug dealers, traffickers, uh, smugglers, or yeah, basically that in terms of that area where rival gangs are fighting for turf and they fight and kill each other. That's why the crime is so high. Yeah, there are some crimes like, maybe petty type crimes like robbery, steal your cell phone or your wallet, that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's everywhere in the world, right? I mean, in LA, if I go to the wrong neighborhood, I can be shot, I can be killed. So it's no different. I mean, when I heard my city was one of the top three or top five most dangerous cities in Brazil, I'm like, okay, cool. I feel right at home, right? I'm from LA, so it doesn't bother me none, right?
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
not like I'm from Midwest or small town, like, oh my gosh, but coming from LA, this is like, it's normal, right?
So you've left now for 5 years. Have you been back to visit?
No, not yet.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
thinking about visiting like the first World Cup is going to be held there in 2026 because it's going to be in Los Angeles. So I'm thinking about that. And also, of course, the Olympic Games on 2028 in Los Angeles. So I'm really thinking about going back then. But you never know. I mean, I'm constantly getting recruiters because I'm on the LinkedIn, so they see what my professional background is, and I'm always getting like interviews from recruiters and offering me jobs and they don't meet my demand, so things don't escalate to the next step or next level. And now I'm kind of fed up of going to the interviews, and I just cut them off and say, "Here are my criterias. If you can't my criterias, then I'm not interested." So,
Hmm. Anyway, you wouldn't want to move back to the US to work. If you were to work for a US company, it would be remotely, right?
yeah, it'll be definitely remotely, but I'll still be
Oh.
living in the U.S. But I'm thinking like if I do that, I may live temporarily in Los Angeles, and I'm just gonna move around from city to city, state to state. I was just thinking like maybe, California and LA for a month, and then maybe, Arizona for a month, Austin for a month, Dallas
Hmm.
for a month,
Hmm.
maybe Atlanta for another month. So I'm going to be moving that kind of way, more the south. Maybe I might go live in, more of those smaller states in the north, like maybe Connecticut, Delaware, maybe for a month. So I'm not going to really want to stay one put like I did before. I think I want to travel around the US and kind of, use the less expense, moving from place to place, like maybe renting a room or a place. And because I'll be traveling anyhow from my job. And then once I find the right place I want to stay at, then I'll move there and then bring my family to from Brazil. Or maybe, I may just do this for a couple years and then take all that money and bring it to Brazil.
Hmm. But as it stands right now, would you say that you're staying in Brazil for the near future, for the foreseeable
Yeah,
future?
I
Okay.
can see that. Yeah. Maybe even retirement, but actually retirement, I was thinking about retiring like in Portugal.
Hmm.
But who knows? I mean, we really can't say what our future holds. So but I am looking in long term because I just love it here. The people, the culture in Brazil. That's
Hmm.
what really stands out for me. So I have no desire at this moment or anything that may want me to move back to US. Um, but you never know. Never say never, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing, you don't feel like you're missing anything in the US in terms of there's nothing pulling you back right now. Like, did you feel like you got enough of the US or
Yeah, you can say that enough, but of course, something that pulls me back just for visit really is the food. I love food, as I mentioned to you. I miss the tacos, the burritos, these type of things. Really good Italian food, really good Japanese food,
Mhm.
So a lot of the varieties from different parts of the world. Uh, and of course, seeing the sun the sunset on the west where it's on the beach on the
Yes.
ocean. I miss
Yeah.
that because
Yes.
there's no sunset on that. That's one of the most astonishing, amazing, incredible thing that you will ever experience is watching that sunset from, on the on the west coast. Yeah. That's what
That's
I miss
right.
about it. Yeah.
Um so you've been to a lot of states in America. I think you said 30 something.
Yeah,
Um
34. Yeah.
34. Is can you think of a city or a state that you really liked that maybe is not something that somebody would think to go to, but that you would that you thought was really cool?
Taking LA or Southern California out of it.
Yeah, like like some sort of like off the wall place that you was like kind of a surprise that, oh, I didn't expect that.
Um, I would say that part of it is the East Coast, like in Massachusetts. That's a really
Mm-hmm.
nice place. Even Washington, D.C. I really enjoyed Washington, D.C. somehow.
Hmm.
Um, the crime there is very high. It's a violent city, but just going around Washington, D.C. it's really nostalgic. It's really vintage. It's really historical. So I really like that. I really liked, funny as it may sound, the thing that's surprising the most that many people will be surprised is I really enjoyed Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Pittsburgh, I mean, it's a steel town. It's a steel city. Not many people wants to live in Pittsburgh and say, why Pittsburgh? There's nothing to see there. And this, I like Pittsburgh. I mean, to me, it was like the brother, of course, Philadelphia is the brotherly love, right? But I found that quite enjoyable in Pittsburgh,
Hmm.
It was really nice. People were pretty cool. Yeah, I really like Pittsburgh a lot. Yeah.
And if you were okay, are you the type of person who prefers big American cities or small?
Oh, definitely big cities. I
Okay.
can't imagine living in a small town city in the US. Whether it's Las Vegas is pretty small for me. Even San Francisco, I found that pretty small compared to LA, right?
Yes,
So
that's
because
true.
it's so, land wise. I mean, Portland, I really enjoyed Portland. I mean, I enjoyed the state of Oregon. That was one of my favorite. I really like Oregon. If you like the outdoorsy type, that would be a nice place. I really enjoyed like those towns in Beaverton and outside of
Mm,
Portland. It's really nice. I enjoy that. If I, for me, the most friendliest, the most, for me at least, the friendliest, the really nicest, and the most nicest American for me is really Salt Lake City or Utah, like
mm,
Ogden. I forgot what the other city is. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Ogden is one of them, and yeah, I forgot the other one. Of course, Salt Lake City. I really like the people there. They're very friendly. Um, I I went to the gym and I did my leg work and my legs were like spaghetti legs, right? And
Yeah.
I just ate at a Texas, restaurant. Not a Texas restaurant, a Brazilian restaurant. And I went down the stairs and I literally fell on my knees because
Oh
that's how
my
bad
God.
my leg day was and I couldn't walk much. And usually if you're in California or in LA, people would look at you, laugh, or point fingers or something. But no, in Salt Lake City, it was outside of Salt Lake City, maybe Ogden or something. They were very friendly and like, "Hey, are you all right? You need help?" And I was like, "Yeah, I need help to get up." And they helped me up, and like I said, they're very friendly. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They didn't
Um,
laugh, they didn't point fingers like they would in California. So yeah.
are you are you ever a solo traveler? You've been to a lot of places. Any of those trips solo?
No, there's a lot that we travel in groups, whether another person or two people. So we're like in three people, four people
Mm,
groups.
okay.
But the majority of the time, I traveled alone. You
Uh-huh.
know, depends on how large the company that I'm visiting. The larger it is, of course, the more group that we go into, like maybe two or three people. But most of the majority time, I travel alone. Yeah. So that means I'm used to traveling alone. Like you go to restaurants alone, you go to hotel alone, you're pretty much alone. So you get used to that.
Hmm. And you travel the world like this, like internationally as well.
Yes. Uh-huh. Correct.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's probably why I like the idea, because a lot of people are afraid to move to other countries by themselves if they're not used to traveling by themselves. But it's kind of like traveling by yourself gives you that experience, right? It prepares you.
Yeah, I think it's fear. Fear is a lot of people like Americans to travel alone because they're unknown, right? The
Hmm.
unknowns out there, they want to travel with a companion, whether that's a girlfriend or a wife or a friend. They'll travel outside, but the majority of times they're not going to travel, maybe not alone, but to literally live alone. I don't think they would do that. That's because of the fear of the unknown, and they don't speak the language and the culture, and um, yeah, and for them, they rather just stay in the US because they're at a comfortable level.
And so, having travels all over the U.S., what is your assessment of the level of safety around the country? Did you, as a solo traveler, would you say that the U.S. is generally safe, or what do you think?
Yeah, I would say it's generally safe. But again, it depends on what part of the European countries or other maybe parts of the world that you visited. I mean, other parts of the world, if you're there at the wrong place at the wrong time, anything can happen. And if you're in a bad neighborhood, anything can happen. Same thing with the US. I mean, if you're gonna say to me, okay, if I travel to the Midwest, I'm gonna feel safe. If I travel to the bigger cities like Chicago, New York, where I don't live there, I just visit there, do an assignment there, then I would be more cautious, be more aware of my surroundings because I can get robbed, I can get, killed, right? So, I mean, I drove to Pittsburgh, I went to Philadelphia. I mean, you can see the neighborhoods once you're driving. You can see if it's a bad neighborhood or not just by driving. And even rural America. I mean, I traveled to small town places, and when I drive around and I'm like, oh my gosh, this place is like it's like the slums of America, but in reality, that's considered an average in that
Mm.
in that city. But for us in a bigger city, that would be considered a slum. Yeah.
Like I never felt unsafe in New York, but in Chicago, there is a distinct boundary between where you're going to get killed and where you're not going to get killed, isn't there?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean Chicago if you're in South Chicago, but New York is pretty dangerous too. I mean, if I was there at a young age when I traveled the first time in New York, and I was like, Californian, right? We dressed up like surfers, right? I
Hmm.
got chased in Central Park by
What?
what
By what?
I got chased in Central Park by a gangs that I found out is called I think it's the Kings of New York. The
Okay.
Latin Kings, that's the one. Latin Kings is the name of the gang members there. I think they're like Puerto Ricans and things like that. And I got chased, and they thought I was a rival gang, so they were chasing
Really?
me. I'm like, yeah, I was like, well, why are you chasing me? There's so many people you can rob, like people there in suits or ties, and somebody who has money. Why are you chasing me? Because they were chasing me because I was in their age group, so they thought I was like an outsider or a gang member and things like that. So they chased me all the way to in inside Central Park. I couldn't even enjoy. I was, walking around on my own, enjoying. Next thing I know, I saw a bunch of group looking at me, pointed at me. I started walking away. They started walking towards me, and when I started like kind of jogging, they jogged, and I just sprinted. I just took off,
Jesus.
and they started chasing me. And then Central Park is so big, I didn't know how the heck to get out of there. And
Hmm.
finally, I was able to get out, get into the streets. I felt safe, and people were just walking. They weren't saying anything there. Nobody was like reporting. It's like, minding their own business, like typical New Yorkers, right? So um, I saw a police officer, and they looked at me, gave me some signs, and I went to that police officer and I pointed them out and I said, hey, those guys were trying to rob me or something. And they just went back in Central Park, and the police officer got on his you know, mic, or, contacted people, and he says, okay, thanks. And he said, there's a bunch of guys here, blah, blah, blah. And he started running inside Central Park. So I was like, F you.
Wow. When was
Yeah.
this?
Oh, I think I was 18, 19 years old when I visited New York. Yeah.
Okay,
The
okay.
first time I visited New York. Yeah.
Hmm. So let's talk about race and racial identity in America. So you being a person of dual culture, do you think that race and racial identity in the U.S. is very, it's just always on people's mind? It sort of finds its way into everything. And was it like that for you living in the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a childhood all the way to adulthood, I mean, it's part of our culture. I mean, as sad as it sounds, we always get stereotype of them thinking you're not American, you're an immigrant, or you don't look American, and just because of the appearance, and they automatically judge you, not even knowing who you are on the inside. So this is the bad thing of our culture, right? I mean, this either brands us either being a weak person or a strong person, because it builds your character, right? So uh, for me, you just go through that and you get bullied because of your appearance, and uh, children can be mean, kids can be mean, and some of them don't are not educated enough, or is not taught in at their homes about that. So yeah, that happened. I mean, I've seen a lot of other minorities get picked on, and some of them are you know, decide not to fight back and turn the other cheek. And when they do that, they get bullied more. And for me, I was the opposite, because I grew up in a gang infested, neighborhood and things like that, and friends being in gangs. So I had that kind of mindset mentality. So I fought back, and when I did that, they left me alone and they didn't bully me. So those are the two things. If you turn your back and not do anything, they're just going to constantly bully you. That's what bullies do. And if you fight back, they don't want to fight, so they'll pick on somebody more weaker. So that's how the bullying structure is in America.
Mm. And that's not the case in Brazil.
No, I mean, in Brazil, they bully you, but because they bully you in school, they have friends that really stick for them, right? So they're bullying their friend. Hey, they'll fight back verbally and say something bad to the bullier. So the bullier is not going to do anything because he has friends. Versus in US, if a bully bullies this person, well, your friend's going to disappear because they don't want to be bullied. So you're going to be on your own. You're going to be an outsider. You're going to be a loner. You're going to be like a lone wolf. So this is the difference between our culture and other people's culture, like say Brazil, for example, maybe in other parts of the country too. So their friends stick together. But we Americans, if you're bullying my friend and you're a different type of mindset, you're not going to hang out with that friend anymore, because in your mind, I don't want to get bullied. I just want to graduate. I just want to get through this. I'm not going to be his friend and get bullied. You're on your own. And he's going to gradually be less and less of your friend and hang out with you because he doesn't want to be bullied, until he isolates you, and then nobody wants to be your friend. You're an outcast, and you get constantly bullied. And that's what causes psychopath in the US, right? The
Psychopaths.
shooters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Did you ever own a gun in the U.S.?
I did, but I owned a gun when I turned 18. Probably not even 18, probably like 20. I bought a gun, a handgun. It was a 9 millimeter.
Mhm.
Went to the shooting range, things like that. But yeah, that was it. And then later on, I disposed of it, gave it to a police officer, and that was that. Yeah.
So, when you owned a gun, did you ever carry it with you, like in your car, when going to a supermarket? Did you always have it on you?
No, not on me all the time, but I don't know if you're familiar with LA riots, during the LA riots when
Yeah.
Rodney King was, brutally pounded on, discriminated. and all hell broke loose in Los Angeles. At
Yes.
that time, yes, I did carry my gun when I went out. Yeah.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah, just for protection. I went to Pep Boys one time, and I had a sweater inside, and I guess they knew that I had a gun, but I didn't think so. But they said, "You got a gun there?" And I was like, "Huh, like I wish I did." But I actually did. Yeah. But I was wearing such a
Okay.
baggy sweater, I couldn't imagine why they even noticed that. So,
That's because you
but
were wearing a baggy sweater. They thought you were trying to hide something?
probably either that or maybe part of the uh, the the handheld pistol or the 9 millimeter, it probably was bulking or something out of my sweater.
Uh,
Uh, Not visible, like you can see it, but just the bulge of it, maybe they may think that I had a gun, maybe I don't know. But that was it. That was a one-time thing, and after that riots, I started realizing, you know what, I'd rather not carry a gun because who knows what may happen, and I just left it at home. If it happens, happens, but because keep this in mind that during the LA riots, I was living in Paramount. I don't know if you remember Paramount or you're familiar with Paramount.
is that in the
Paramount is
valley?
no, Paramount is right next to Compton. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
dangerous
so
area, right?
yeah, and I lived in that neighborhood. I lived in that apartment. And the street used to be called Compton Boulevard in Compton, but because when it
I've
came to
heard of
my
that.
city, yeah, when it came to my city on Paramount, they changed the street. Why?
Oh,
Because they don't want to be associated with the word Compton, so they changed the street. But that
uh,
street, I was actually living on Compton Boulevard. Yeah,
okay. And so when
yeah.
you went to buy a gun as an 18-year-old, uh, what did you have to do? Did you have to, what did you have to, is there a vetting process or?
I mean, if you try to get a gun, I think I was like 20 years old when I bought the gun. Um, yeah, you just go through the process, go to a gun store, fill up application, they'll do a background check. You pay for the gun, then they hold the gun for you until the process clears, everything comes out on your background check, and then after it clears, then you get your gun.
And so do you have to pay for the background check or that's free?
Yeah, you pay for the background check, you pay for the application,
Uh,
and then when they give you the gun, I don't remember if they give you back that deposit that you gave in order for you to process the application, because you had to pay for the application, but it's kind of a deposit, or you put in a deposit for the gun, but you use that deposit to pay the gun or something like that. I don't remember. Yeah.
oh, I see. Okay.
But
So,
it was an easy process as long as you don't have any problems in your background. But yeah,
and it was
it was
quick.
pretty easy. Yeah, it took like probably 2 weeks when I got my gun or the application. I'd say 2 or 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks. Yeah. Actually, I had a coworker at the time. Uh, he helped me because he had a gun and he's familiar with the gun. And we went to a gun store in Monterey Park. I believe it was Monterey Park, and he helped me get a gun there, and I purchased it and do all the process. We actually did that during lunchtime. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. And
yeah,
and then so you had your gun for a number of years, and then you just finally
yeah,
turned it in. There was no use for
yeah.
it.
Yeah, there's no use. I mean, I went to shooting range. I enjoy that. It kind of gives you an idea how strong guns are. You got to respect it. And one of my friend is also a police officer. He's a LA sheriff. So we go on a shooting range, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
The power of a gun is very interesting because I mean, most people may not know this, but you actually have to have a certain stance so that the it doesn't throw you back, right? Or same thing with.
Yeah, in a way, but you do that more if you have a shotgun. Like my
Uh,
friend, I told you he was a police officer. He had a
mhm.
shotgun and he brought it and we shot it. And yeah, I had to take a step and make sure I was firm and also hold on to that because it'll ricochet back and it may end up hitting you or something, or you may
But
lose control or something. Yeah.
the gun might actually flip up and hit you, right?
Yeah, the shotgun.
Yeah.
The gun, yeah, that too. Depends on how you're holding it. Yes.
Hmm.
It's always good to hold it with two hands. Yeah.
So
But yeah.
it's really kind of a lie when you see in movies how like people just usually they're able to do such a perfect shot with one hand while holding the
You
gun
can
with the
do
other.
it. You can
Uh-huh.
do it with one hand, but depends on how powerful, the gun is.
Uh,
Sure, you can do it with one hand, but when it ricochets, you're not going to get that true aim, you know.
it's gonna throw your
Um,
aim off.
yeah, exactly. So the best way is uh two hands. That's why you see, police officers and detectives in the shows and all that, they're always using two hands because that's you get the accuracy of it and the control.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's very yeah. So you see in a TV show or movie where it's just like all of a sudden they pull it out one hand, one shot, and
Yeah.
that's not very. That's actually very difficult, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's you can do that. It can work, but doesn't mean that you're gonna hit the target. Yeah.
Right, right. So you have
Yeah.
to be like an expert marksman probably to be able to suddenly pull out the gun one hand and fire and exactly hit what you want to hit.
Right. And you see in the movies where they put it in the side instead of in the front, right? They kind of make it in an angle. It looks cool that way, but not really. Nobody does that when you shoot. So, but you can. It's not a problem. Yeah.
Oh, you mean when they put it sort of like 45 degrees from their body?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I see. Yeah, they angle it
Yeah.
reverse because most people if they shoot a gun it's directly straight front. That's the way you got
Yes.
it. Okay, I get it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just a movie thing. It just makes it look cool, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's yes it does. Okay.
Mhm.
Um well so you in Brazil. All right, so now you're 5 years in Brazil now, and would you say that you have fully acclimated to the new lifestyle?
I would say so. The only thing I lack is the language, which is one of the important things. But because, I'm mostly at home because of my classes and um, yeah, not able to learn the Portuguese language because I'm one of those people that I need a teacher to teach me Portuguese language. I'm not one of those self-studier that I can learn on my own. Because I'm sure people listening here, they're gonna say, "Wow, you've been in Brazil for 5 years and you can't speak the language." Yeah, that's correct. Because for me, it's like I watch things in English, movies, whatever movies it is or news, everything is in English. So I really don't get I don't watch Brazilian things because I don't understand. Like I said, I'm not a self-starter, and every time I get like a Portuguese teacher, I can't get the ones to fit in my schedule and their schedule because they're a teacher and I'm also an English teacher. And then the other thing too is they charge more than I do. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought English is supposed to be more expensive, but no, Portuguese language is they're charging me more. Maybe it's because I'm an American, so they want to gouge me, price gouge me or
Mm-hmm.
something, or take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of that kind of thing. I don't know. Could be, maybe not. But their price is much higher than mine. And I'm like, no, I'm not paying much higher than that. And what I look for is their methodology. I'm not just going to pick out any Portuguese teacher out there. I want to get my money's worth, someone who has a really good methodology. I mean, for example, if I take that teacher and they're charging me at a low price, but I'm going to learn Portuguese in 1 year, that means I got to pay the whole entire year. But if I get a Portuguese teacher that's a little more expensive than that Portuguese teacher, maybe I'll learn Portuguese in 4 or 6 months. So who's cheaper? The one who I can learn Portuguese 5 or 6 months that I pay 5, 6 months versus the 1 year. For me, it's 5 to 6 months, even though I'm paying a little more.
So you had said before that like in the US you would not want to live in a small town, you want to live in a big city. But now in Brazil, you're living in a small town. Have you ever thought about moving to a bigger city in Brazil like Rio, more cosmopolitan city?
I would like to. I mean, yeah, of course, the violence comes with it, the people and all that. Probably I would learn Portuguese much quicker because it's a bigger, city. But because my wife's family is all in this smaller city, don't want to leave her town and her daughter too. So for me, it's cool. I mean, even though it is small, I've been to really small towns in the US where there are like 3,000 people or maybe 5,000 people. I know what's that like. At least my city is like over 320,000 plus. I mean, it is small for Brazil, maybe even small for us Americans, but 320,000 isn't so bad. for me.
No,
I'm not
that
if
doesn't. That's a medium-sized
yeah,
city, isn't it? That's not actually
yeah.
a small city.
No, I mean, if I was going to live in a 10,000 community or 20,000 community, no, I probably would not have lived here. I probably would say, we either move somewhere or maybe you come to US. I would have considered that in my, thought before I would have moved here. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And okay, well, final question: the Brazilians that you have met, are they kind of surprised? Like, oh, why would you leave America, the land of opportunity? Have you gotten that from Brazilians?
Oh yeah, I mean, even US, like I moved in Las Vegas, and when people found out I lived in Newport Beach, they were like, "Why are you here in Vegas? Why did you leave, California? It's harder to go back to California once you leave there." But I went back, and it's not a problem. Same thing here in Brazil. It's like, why did you leave? Like United States, it's really great. But most of the thing that they get surprised is, what am I doing in a small town when I tell them what city I'm from? And they say, I can't picture you living there. I would think like Sao Paulo or Rio, more the south side, more the bigger places for an American. But going from the northeast part or smaller town, it's like, what are you doing there? Yeah. Than it
Hmm.
is then, being as an American per se, like, why did you leave US? Yeah.
But your reason for living there is because of your wife,
Yeah, her
right?
family. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
So
very close knit, very close tight with her family, which I can respect and seeing it. And I don't want to be selfish and take that away from them, like because her parents are old, she has a grandmother still living. And if I took that away from, from her country and her town, and if they passed away, that's gonna suck. And because I've gone through that with both my parents passing away, and I don't want that. And some of my students too, their parents passed away, and they're living from a different city. They live in Brazil, but a different city, and it's devastating for them. Can you imagine if it's outside the country? I have one student that is also like, say for example, in Denmark, and her father passed away, and she wasn't close with her father, and she was in south, her father was in south of Brazil. She was devastated. She had to immediately leave Denmark to come to Brazil, and pay those horrendous prices, right? Those plane tickets. And yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. So I didn't want to do that with my my side, my wife's family side. So yeah.
mhm. Okay. Well, I think that's good. We'll stop here. Thank you so much, Leon, for speaking about
Yeah,
your
thank you for
journey.
having me. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. That was a blast. That was fun. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye
Yeah.
bye for now.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. See y'all later. Ciao.